Brain exercises. Would you like some brain exercises that will really trump, or we don't want to use that word trump, but beat, destroy, better, create a much more powerful experience than any fortune that a memory supplement could possibly bring? I mean, we're talking about the blessing of using your mind for exercise. And memory exercises, brain exercises are so easy. You don't need to have any apps. You can make up your own brain and memory exercises anytime. And they really, really are better than any memory supplement that you'll ever find. And how can I make such an extraordinary claim? Well, one of the reasons why is that, I'm a scientific person by nature, so show me some evidence and research that changes my mind, and I'll be the first person to change my mind. But every single memory supplement that I've ever looked at gives about a 0.02% verbal memory advantage. Big deal. Drinking water will give you that. So why shell out all kinds of not just cash to buy all this crap, but also, it's just not even going to help you use memory techniques at all, right? Because the only thing that helps you use memory techniques is brain exercise and memory techniques. And memory techniques are brain exercise, which is really, really exciting. If you're hopping on this call, let me know where in the world you are and say hello. Thumbs up to let me know you're alive and engaged. And also, please tell me how you're feeling and what you're thinking so that we can get rolling, and let me know what kinds of brain exercises you already do, what your thoughts are about it, and really what you think about this whole world of supplementation. And in many ways, a lot of the apps that people sell, and I get asked questions all the time, what do I think about apps for memory exercise, for brain exercise? And the answer is very, very simple. I think that it's a lot of fraud going on there, because you don't need those things, and they make claims about what those apps are supposed to do for you that they can't substantiate. And without me naming any names, you probably heard one of the big companies faced a very, very large lawsuit. They had to email their entire list about the false claims that they made, and I thought that was really, really interesting. So I'd like to know what you think as well. So if you're hopping on the call, let me know where in the world you are, and hit that thumbs up. Let's rock and roll. Now, in terms of brain exercises, one of the things that I really would suggest to you is that your brain exercise happens in your brain, right? So it's not crossword puzzles. It's not Sudoku. It's not hangman. It's not video games or anything like that. A brain exercise, by virtue of the term brain exercise, is in your brain, in your mind. Michael from North Carolina, thank you for saying hello, Michael. I really appreciate it. And I really want to stress that. I think it's a fundamental. Now, that doesn't mean that those other things can't give you mental exercise or brain exercise, although I just received an email the other day about something that I had written on the internet about crossword puzzles, and someone said, you should write a whole book about your argument against crossword puzzles, because the whole thing is that when you're using an external device to give yourself brain exercise, whether it's an app or a game or a crossword puzzle, you're truly not really giving your brain the fitness that it could have independent of those things. It's fused, it's assembled with something outside of itself. And so it's not really a question of whether that's weaker or stronger. It's not the same thing. It really isn't the same thing. So what am I talking about here with brain exercises? Well, I'm talking about actually using your brain. Jopel 100's here from Brazil. Well, thank you so much, Jopel, for being here from Brazil. 10 p.m. in Brazil. Wow, that's amazing. I wish that I could go to Brazil. It's a place I've always wanted to visit, and I hope that everything's treating you real nice there, and that you're getting some good brain exercise. Let me know what your experience with brain exercise is. Now, one brain exercise that you can do, and I think it's one of the best, is because, and why I think it's the best, or amongst the best, and it's applicable across the board in so many ways, and that's what makes it so cool. Peyton's here, 2 a.m. in London. Peyton, I know that last time you felt a little slighted there, but I say this with all the kindness and love in my heart, but I hope you're getting enough sleep in your life, because that's really important. It's good brain exercise to sleep. It really is. So the thing is that, and I learned this from Gary Small. Gary Small is a great author of memory education and brain training education. 2 Weeks to a Younger Brain is his book. And there's an interview. I interviewed him on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. I highly recommend you listen to that, because he has a great way of thinking about what memory really is that's very empowering. And that's at magneticmemorymethod.com. Just go to Google and search. Or if you're watching the replay, then well, we'll see if I remember to put the link to that there, but or have it appear somewhere on the screen. But I love Gary Small. I really appreciate the time that he spent with the audience of the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, and I hope you'll listen to that episode, because it's one of the best on the whole series, and the metaphor that he gives for how you can think about your memory is really powerful. Anyway, he gives in 2 Weeks to a Younger Brain this really powerful exercise that I've adopted in many different ways over the years, and it's just this. Go out in the street and observe a person, and observe 4 things about that person. Then later in the day, ask yourself what those 4 things were that you observed about the person. And this is called passive memory exercise, or it's related to something that other authors in the space call passive memory exercise. And it's so powerful because you're not using any memory techniques as such, but you're just asking your brain to do a little bit of recall. And you are practicing paying attention to something in the world that you've encountered, and then later you're asking yourself to recall what that was. And the reason why you can adopt this in many different ways is it doesn't have to be 4 details of a person. It can be 4 details about a car. So last night, April and I, we were just sitting looking out the window and having a great time together, and I just saw a truck, and I observed a number of things about it and said, I'm going to ask myself later, what were those things? And that's just a little, it seems like a tiny little thing, but it's one of the biggest things in the world, because of how it enables you to stretch and give your memory something to do, an exercise. And it's just very passive. It's not using memory techniques. Using memory techniques actively would be more active. So if I were to, or you were to look at something and memorize 4 things about it and encode it in using any or many or all or none, or not none, but a couple of the memory tools that are available to you, then that would be active, right? So there's passive versus active, and that's a whole different shebang there. Jack says, good morning, afternoon, evening to all of you. 2 a.m. in the UK. Jack, just as I said to Peyton, I hope you guys are getting sleep. It's really important. It's great. And you know, another memory exercise, brain exercise that you can do is writing down your dreams. And it's also asking your brain to practice recall. This will create an advantage for you over time, because you'll get good at a number of things. Samantha here says, Sam in Minnesota, I wish I could listen to more. ... kids. Well, please do come back and listen to more so that you can teach your kids memory techniques. They're really powerful and a gift. And there are some episodes on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast with children and their parents. And those kids are using memory techniques. Wow, it's really brilliant. So please search magneticmemorymethod.com and kids. You'll see some great episodes with kids and their parents. Alex from Seabrook, Texas, reporting in. Thanks, Alex. Jack says, I like the idea of memorizing 4 things in an observation. I usually try and memorize the number plate in front of me when I'm driving. I find that very useful too. Memorizing license plates is a cool memory exercise. Thank you, Jack. That's a really great one. However, this particular exercise is not actually using any memory techniques. This is important. It's just saying, I'm observing 4 things. not doing any encoding, and then later asking yourself, what were those 4 things? And I think that that's important, because encoding is a different exercise. It's a different exercise. And this is a passive memory exercise. And so it's a very interesting feeling. It's something that you can get much better at. And it's just something that you can apply across the board. So again, it doesn't have to be people, it can be vehicles. On this week's podcast, or perhaps the next one, I'm going to be talking about how you can apply this exercise to other things. So if you're not subscribed to magneticmemorymethod.com and you want to be getting notifications of podcasts, then definitely go to magneticmemorymethod.com and get yourself sorted, because then you'll receive that information when it comes out. Peyton says, very interested in memory as it applies to dreams. Those memories fade like butter on a hot stove. That's a good image. Yes, they do. And there's a way to capture them. There's a way to actually capture. I think that, I've done 6 to 7 dreams or even more, depending on how you count dreams. And what ends up happening when you practice recall of your dreams over a longer period is that you begin to shape the quality of your dreams. And in some ways, the quantity, your feeling of what counts as a dream changes. And also your understanding of what dreaming really is changes. Alex says, making me hungry, Peyton. Yes. It's going to be lunch here in not too long. But yes, that is a hunger-making thing. I want to keep this a family-friendly channel, but it brings to my mind, makes me remember, Peyton, a line from a movie called Lost Highway, directed by David Lynch, which is a great movie. It's all about memory, actually. So go see Lost Highway. If you need to ask for parental permission, please do so, because it's a bit of an extreme movie, but it is a movie about memory. And please, you'll see a metaphor and you'll know which metaphor was coming to my mind based on yours. So that's one thing, and it's really, really, really cool exercise. I love it, and I do it a lot, and I've adapted it many, many different ways, and I'll be talking about some of those adaptations later. Look at that. The Bike Memory Palace. Love that thing. That's from Jube Customs, by the way, here in Brisbane. Really, really great place, and we're going to go there and make a video about using bikes as memory palaces. And so let me know if that's of interest to you. Let me know where you are in the world if you haven't chimed in yet, and what you think about brain exercise. Joe Pell says, Peyton, I see sometimes that the more often you try to remember these dreams, the more you can remember them. Reading Freud's dream interpretation, or the interpretation of dreams, is pretty useful here. Jack says, yes. Yeah, the interpretation of dreams is cool. I'll tell you something. I wasn't planning to tell you this today, but I undertook dream therapy with a guy named Robert Langs in New York City when I lived there. And he wrote a lot of books about dreaming. And many of them I think are much more interesting and useful than Freud's work, but they don't exist without Freud's work. So you can have the benefit of all these worlds, plus the work of Carl Jung, of course, but the ultimate work is your work. And there are things to be said about, Freud's conclusions and so forth, but I really like what happened with Robert Langs, because what he did in his dream recall therapy sessions was to essentially use the dreams to teach you how to recognize your unconscious communication. So it's not just classical psychoanalysis where you come to recognize your resistances and all that sort of stuff and overcome them, but it also is all about understanding unconscious communication and how that we encode different messages in the stories that we tell, and then teach you how to recognize the unconscious messages that people are giving to you in the stories they tell you. It's really, really powerful. So if you haven't read anything by Robert Langs, I highly, highly recommend at least reading one of his books on dreams. And if you want to go further into his books on psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, he kind of uses those two terms interchangeably. He's a real interesting dude, and he was controversial. I was really sad to see that he died the last time I looked him up, and it was an incredible experience. And just can't even begin to explain it all, but I do go into depth into it in my dream course on how to remember your dreams and tell more of that story. Peyton says, have you done any podcasts on memory recall for dreams? Robert whom? It's Robert Langs, Langs, and most of my dream discussion is in the course How to Remember Your Dreams, which is part of the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. It's kind of a bonus in there, and quite frankly, some people say it's the most important memory course that I've ever done. Other people are just like, just give me the memory techniques. But I think that dream recall is an important part of the puzzle because it is a kind of memory exercise. I wasn't even thinking of mentioning it on today's talk, but it is. And incidentally, if you're interested in all that, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/store, STORE, and you can support this work and support your own memory by getting registered up for a course. It's really good stuff to train your memory. Jack says, that'll be very interesting. I'd like to know how to create a memory palace with a bike and how to connect the images we can create with the bike palace. Can't wait. Oh yeah, well, that's coming soon. So Peyton says, I have a lot of rocking chairs in my rooms. Okay, very good. I hope you use them as magnetic stations in your memory palaces. Oscar says, hi Anthony, did you research information about what Tesla said about visualization? Yes, I have, and I am still reading. You sent me on a huge adventure, Oscar. I'll be eternally grateful because Tesla has become very important to some research that I'm doing, and you're going to see very soon, or as soon as possible. I'm waiting for an email now about this, and I can't wait because Tesla is an interesting dude. Joe Pell says, is it Robert Langs, Anthony? I didn't understand the full name. I'm going to search more of it. Yes, Robert Langs. Now, there's another Robert Langs who apparently is a origami master, and that's not the same guy. So just to make sure that you don't buy origami books because they don't have anything about dreams in them. But origami is interesting as well. You could make memory palaces out of origami. This I know for sure. Greg says, hi there. Hi, Greg. Thanks for being here. The bike memory palace. Woohoo! Definitely. The thing with the bike too, to understand, and here's a great brain exercise, is to think that everything that you learn is kind of like a bike. Every skill, anyway. So you can't just like hop on a bike and ride it and expect it to suit your needs straight out of the box. You often got to raise the seat, lower the seat, tilt the handlebars, adjust the mirrors if you've got mirrors on there like I do, and you've got to conceive of it in your own way. All right, so far we've gotten through the the 4 observation memory exercise, passive memory exercise. Dream recall is kind of between passive and active because you're not really. Jack says, Amazon Decoding Your Dreams from Robert Langs. That's exactly right, Decoding Your Dreams. There's so many books that he wrote, like it's hard for me to just say, yeah, that's the one, because that would be wrong. It's kind of like, once you get into his universe, you're probably going to want to read more than one of his books, and it's just wild. The only criticism that I have really is that I think he goes one step too far by essentializing, reifying psychoanalysis. He might be right about it, but I just can't see any evidence for that. And because there's not really any way to make evidence of that, and then he gets a little bit too far away from the mysticism and so forth. But I get his point. And his thoughts about inducing death anxiety and all that sort of stuff, really fascinating stuff. But it's really just like, what are you going to do with your dreams? And what I really like about it is how that he removes dream interpretation from woo-woo mysticism, and he places it in a much more realistic setting so that you're actually using your dreams to understand yourself better. and understand others better, and to do it in a way that is actually inherently scientific. So he's teaching you a science of using your dreams that involves testing, making hypotheses, never being too sure about your hypotheses. And it's all great brain exercise. It's really, really great brain exercise to use your dreams in that way, but with caution. And what it leads to is understanding other people differently and understanding the things that you're saying to other people differently. And you're developing a higher level of conscious awareness of what's going on with you in your world. And so Peyton asks, what's this business with Tesla and visualization? Drop a hint and I'll Google the rest. I'm not sure that Oscar may be able to drop a hint, but you might want to go back to some of the previous lives to see what he had to say there and what he was suggesting. But Oscar may drop a hint, but I think it's more than a hint. He's sending you on an adventure. Jack says, I meant to ask you this for a while. Why do you call an item a magnetic station? I understand the station part. Not sure what you mean by magnetic station. Could you explain? Sure. Well, what is a magnet? Let me ask you the question. What is a magnet? What does a magnet do? Because there's some powerful things to be understood here. Tell me what a magnet does. Now, the second brain exercise while we're discussing magnets and magnetism, I like this exercise a great deal. Jack says it pulls and pushes. Very good. So imagine now, this is what makes the magnetic memory method so different than all the other memory palace instructions out there. Imagine that you are not just magnetizing and sticking in place the information that you want, but you're doing it in such a way that it repels everything else, pushes away everything else that isn't the information that you want, right? So it's truly magnetic. It's truly magnetic in the highest sense of the word. We are trying to attract what we want, what we need, and not be irritated, not be confused, not be distracted by all the other information that has nothing to do with that. And we're isolating it so that it works very, very pristinely and precisely for the purposes that we intend it. It's really that simple. And that's why I use that word, or that metaphor of the magnet to frame our understanding. Peyton asks, Anthony, do you have a lexicon of how you use terms, or is it a hard slog through all the past lives? Not sure what you mean. Past lives, like the past live recordings. Yeah, well, I have a number of books. The second editions of my books have glossaries in them. The Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass has all the terms already there for you. And if you find it a slog going through the lives, then what can I say? Show up more to the current ones. But there's a back catalog there. There's a podcast. There's all kinds of material. But please don't put yourself through a slog. This is not meant to be painful for anyone. It should never be painful. But if you want formal training, that's available for you. And I would recommend people keep asking for just a simple place to find the video trainings, and that's magneticmemorymethod.com/store, STORE. And you can do formal training. I have a PhD, taught for years, so these courses are taught not just willy-nilly, but from someone who had some experience making courses before doing that. And they're video courses, and they come with some PDFs and some audio and some exercises, and really all you need to do is take them and create some memory palaces according to the recommendations and use the memory palaces, and then you'll find that you have incredible results. In fact, let's talk about some of these incredible results, because there's been some neat emails about that, and I wanted to share one with you because it's a lot of fun. What I heard here in my email, and it's just incredible what happens. So listen to this. This is from a Magnetic Memory Method masterclass student. And one of the things that happens when you're in the masterclass is you get follow-up emails that help guide you through everything and make sure that you're engaging and open up your perspective and take action and so forth. And Nelson wrote to me and he said, when I was first starting, I was frustrated that the masterclass didn't just tell me exactly how the whole mental image thing was to be done. But truth be told, I'm familiar with the whole personal development thing, and now I think you're absolutely right in the way you laid it out. By going through the process and following the steps, doing the worksheets you set out, and reading the suggested material, it clearly defines what to do and how to do it. But it only reveals itself when you do the legwork of assimilating the material you directed me to do. And also the curiosity you sparked, fed by the interwebs. So I YouTubed Tony Buzan, wow. And the thing I keep in mind is that I'm trying to get my brain/imagination working. If someone else is telling me what to think and how to think, it's not really going to work for me. You have to do it yourself. It's your brain that you're trying to kickstart. It's your imagination that needs to be stimulated. And that doesn't happen if somebody else tells you what to think, if somebody else gives you the pictures and does all the work for you. So keep up the great work. Your podcast is great. The masterclass is the best. As far as improvement goes, you've set the bar pretty high. Maybe you could do a deeper explanation of mnemonics, but as I've said, you can't ride the bike for me. I have to ride it myself. So thanks for all that you've done so far. I'm sure from the millions of people you've helped, some great ideas will come. And should I stumble upon something that I haven't already seen or learned from you, I'll certainly pass it on. Sincerely. From, one part of the email says it's from Nelson, the other from Michael. But in any case, you know how people are with emails, signed different name than it was sent from. But I want to really drill that home because I think it's the most important part in the world, and it's what distinguishes the magnetic memory method from so much of the other training out there. Because not all of them, but many of them are doing you a deep disservice by handing to you the systems or whatever. You create your own systems, and I give you the path to creating your own systems and do it in the most ethical and honest possible way. And just as is pointed out here, it only reveals itself when you do the legwork of assimilating the material. Because I can't do it for you. Your brain has to do it because it's your memory, right? And no magic pill exists, but the brain exercises do exist. No memory palace that I create can be in your head because you're the one who's using your memory in order to learn new things. You're using what you already know, which are things that I don't know. And you're understanding how to connect what you already know with what you don't know so that you do know it. And you're doing it in a way that's magnetic. And as Jack asked, what is all this word magnetic for? Well, you're doing it so that only the things that matter stick and you're not being distracted by the things that don't matter. So it's attracting and repelling. And it's doing it in a way that you learn how to use your own life in order to make this happen. And it's the most exciting thing in the world, quite frankly. And people tell me this all the time. Oscar, thanks for that note about Tesla and the interview and talking about, that little bit of visualization. But Peyton, when you get into the weeds there, you're going to find that there's a whole universe to be discovered and explored. Peyton asks, speaking of Buzan, are his methods a function of memory or a type of thinking? That's an interesting question. Do you think there's a difference? And if so, what is that difference? Also, I would suggest that you go to magneticmemorymethod.com/Tony-Buzan and listen to my interview with him. It's a real fun one. And he reveals some of the most important information in the world that you'll ever discover. So I think you're going to enjoy that. That's magneticmemorymethod.com/Tony. Buzan. And really great interview. And I'll never forget the day that he gave me the Warrior of the Mind emblem, which I hope to one day pass on to one of you for demonstrating that you are a warrior of the mind. Just as I apparently demonstrated that I am one. And of course, anybody can do it, so it's pretty cool. Jack says, let me see here. Jack, that's a great question. I would just say practice and train, and if you need further study, then it's available there for you. I don't know. I think that the way that you're asking the question reveals the need for more practice, and that is available for you anytime. You can practice all the time these different things. So again, it's really what this email is talking about. And I'll just repeat it because it's really important here. You're absolutely right the way you laid the masterclass out. By going through the process and following the steps, doing the worksheets you set out, and reading the suggested material, it clearly defines what to do and how to do it, but it only reveals itself when you do the legwork of assimilating the material you directed me to do. And so it's then a step beyond that. It's assimilating the material and then actually taking action and practice. And you sound like you know plenty. So it's just a matter of practice, less questions and more discovery through practice. And I say that with all the kindness and loveness in my heart that I have, because so many people let the question become the question of the question of the question instead of taking action, instead of doing, because all of this is learned by doing. And if you need guidance and you need training, that training is going to get you doing, right? Because it's like swimming, right? You can read a book on swimming, you can watch people swim and so forth, but until you're in the water and you're practicing swimming ain't gonna happen. It's like fishing. You can read a book about fishing, you can read Hemingway until you're blue in the face, all about fishing, right? But until you're in that boat and you have the rod in your hands and you're casting that hook and line and sinker out into the water, and then you feel that fish and you reel it in. Last night, it's the same deal for me as it is for all the people in the world. Last night, this is the memorandum stack from Woody Aragon, and man, the Queen of Hearts, for some reason, Queen of Hearts, which is between the 9 of clubs and the 6 of clubs, for some reason, like I had the fish on the hook, but for some reason I wasn't able to pull it into the boat. And so when I practice the cards, what I do is I put them down and then I reverse. If I can't recall one, I reverse it so I can't see it, but I can keep going in the stack what I do remember. And that Queen of Hearts, I was just like, whoa. And this is another brain exercise for you, actually. If you know how to memorize a deck of cards, don't show yourself the card. Put it face down, and all the other ones that you've correctly named are face up, and then try through a process of elimination to recall that missing card. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful because then I was able to fix the problem, right? And I was just thinking, well, why? Why is the Queen of Hearts not just so immediately there? And then I realized the answer. It's partly because I'm trying a new way of memorizing cards, challenging myself, because the old way just got too easy. When it gets too easy, it almost starts to die. So now I'm increasing the number of cards per station and yada, yada, yada. But the whole point is that for some reason that wily Queen of Hearts, which should be so obvious, it's got some of the most beautiful images associated with it and memorable images, but there's a reason for it. And so just ask why and give yourself the brain exercise. Give your brain the opportunity to actually struggle a little bit, to reach. And then I found it. And it was fun. April was here. She was watching me. And she was like, how do you actually memorize cards? And so I took out a piece of paper and I started to describe the thing. And then she just said, stop. That's enough for me. And I just thought, okay, but it's like the most miraculous skill in the world. If you don't want to know, no problem. But anyway, it's just so much fun. It creates so much joy to have these skills. and I want them for you as well. It's great brain exercise. It's the same as going to the gym, how good you feel after you give yourself fitness. Wonderful. Okay, so the second brain exercise I wanted to share with you all today is a numeracy exercise. And, it's just taking any number, a 2-digit number at least, but ideally a 3-digit number, and then adding 3 times, and then minusing 7 times. And so it almost has to be a 3-digit number. It's a cool memory exercise, and basically what you're doing is you're practicing concentration more than you are math, but seeing how long and how far that you can go. So you can change it around too, right? You can do progressive numeration. So you can start 3 times, and then 7 times, and then go 4 times, and then minus 7 or 8 minus 8 times, and so forth. And you just see how far you can go mentally juggling all of this. And so you're practicing a number of levels of cognition, and you're practicing short-term memory essentially, because you need to not only do the calculations, but you need to remember where you are in the sequence. And then you add progressive difficulty as you go along. It's a brilliant concentration and memory exercise. I love it. Alex says, when I memorize decks, I deliberately do not look at the last 2 cards in order to figure out what they are by reviewing my stations. Okay, that's cool. That's wonderful. Great addition to the conversation. Thank you. Jack says, I love memorizing cards. It's the most relaxing brain exercise I've ever experienced. It's a lot of fun. Yes, it is. Thank you, Jack. Jopel100 says, Anthony, I understand that mental exercise such as dream writing or the famous 100-7 are amazing, but why are exercises such as Sudoku or logic puzzles not as good? Well, okay, look, this is me being partly dramatic, but I think if you think about it, you'll see that there's an issue here. And I can't really speak about Sudoku that much, but because I don't play it. But crossword puzzles, and I used to work in old folks' homes, and I'd observe these people, and they wouldn't really be getting brain exercise from it. Like in these old folks' homes, these rental or retirement homes, the staff would be like, yeah, here's your brain exercise for the day. Complete this crossword puzzle, and you're going to get all this fitness, and science shows that this, that, and the other thing. But here's what I observed. I'd observe people going like this, next. Or they would go, and then they would turn the page and look for the answer and write in the answer. Or, some variation on that theme. Well, where is the brain exercise in that? There's no brain exercise in that. Just thinking for 2 seconds and giving up is not brain exercise. That's called trained helplessness. It's learned helplessness. And so, and there's scientific studies of this. You can look it up. Look up the scientific support, the evidence that shows that crossword puzzles have given advantage in terms of brain exercise and increased cognition and so forth. You're going to find people that have differing conclusions. You'll have to come to your own decision based on the evidence that's there. I'm not really overwhelmed that there's an advantage from it. It's the same thing with memory supplements. I've yet to see any overwhelming evidence that there's a memory supplement that you can take that will do better for your brain and your memory than water and the kinds of mental exercise that we're talking about today. Joe Pell says, I see, you stiff your mind in the repetition, it becomes a pattern, you don't exercise anymore. Thank you. You're welcome. And that's basically the thing. There are a lot of things that are out there that call themselves brain exercise that actually are learned helplessness. And that's what a lot of these apps are doing as well. So, you've seen the apps, right? You get a bunch of pictures, and you're supposed to remember the spatial location of where the pictures are, and yeah, okay, maybe you're learning how to do that in the context of the game, and you can get to a certain point and then you give up because it's too difficult, right? And maybe they give you a little graph and, oh wow, great. This is not authentic brain exercise. It's just dumping responsibility onto a machine rather than actually giving yourself mental exercise. Actually giving yourself mental exercise by using your brain to not only do the exercise, but create the frame in which the exercise it takes place, right? So this is why this +3 -7 thing is so great, is because you're actually using your brain at multiple levels to conduct the exercise, right? Now, so in other words, the exercise is the dojo in which the exercise takes place. Do you see what I mean? It's just glorious. It's glorious. It's glorious. So Alex says +1. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. It's just, and that's what we want to look for always. That's what the memory palace is. That's what the magnetic memory method is working so hard to teach you to do. Instead of relegating all of this to machines and index cards and yada, 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 we're working to have the memory palace actually be the frame in which our encoding and decoding takes place, so that it goes into long-term memory, and we can go back to the memory palace if we want, but we don't need to, because we've used the dojo itself to be the place that creates the long-term memory, so that you can then go out into the world and use it, use the information, because you have the ability that you have trained in the dojo, and you have it irrespective of whether you're in the dojo or not. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. All right, so another thing that you can do to really get good brain exercise and focus and be a better conversationalist is to practice, and this is a brain exercise for sure, is to practice paying closer attention to the things that people are saying by repeating what they're saying in your own mind. So I've found at different times of my life, I don't have this problem anymore due to lots of exercise and practice, but I found that I was having difficulty tracking what people were saying. My mind was jumping all over the place. So a little exercise that I came up with is to just repeat in my mind what they were saying, in my own voice, internal voice, so to speak. And I realized that this is a cool concentration exercise, because you track and you study how long you can actually do it. And you can do it while you're watching movies as well, repeating the dialogue in your own internal voice in your mind. It's kind of like the opposite of, it's the opposite of speed reading and suppressing subvocalization. You're actually encouraging subvocalization, and you're amplifying subvocalization as a means of making better concentration for yourself. I think it's absolutely wonderful. And you should give it a try. So repeating what people say in your own mind is really, really great. And I think that we got another big comment here from ATL 301086. Hello, Anthony. Some advice to begin to memorize Japanese kanji, since the various readings each has. I find it hard to think of a good method that includes everything. Greetings from Mexico, from Alan. Alan, great question. I have a course on memorizing Japanese. It's kind of like one of the Easter eggs in the masterclass. So I would suggest that if you want to get a real good start, go to the masterclass and take the course, How to Learn and Memorize the Vocabulary of Any Language. And this is exclusive in the masterclass. There's an Easter egg there, which is a full course on memorizing the hiragana, katakana, and some tips on kanji. So that's that. And for people who don't have the masterclass, you can find information about that at magneticmemorymethod.com. Oscar said, and you can go to /store for a direct path into that. Speaking of what's my take on speed reading, good method or scam, that is something that I've talked about several times on the podcast. I suggest that you listen to my discussions with Jonathan Levy. If you haven't, make up your own mind about it. If you haven't taken the Superlearner free trial, I have one for you. Go to magneticmemorymethod.com/SL for Superlearner. I highly recommend that you take it from Jonathan. It's incredible. I've sat with him, watched him do his thing, and I highly, highly recommend taking that course. You get a free trial, magneticmemorymethod.com/SL, or listen to some of my interviews with him, but I'll save comment on that for some other time. Oscar says, something else about Tesla, there is a kind of Tesla journal. The author says a little bit more about visualization. Bingo, Peyton, that is the... that's part of the adventure that I think you're going to find yourself on, and I wish you a lot of fun. Peyton says, learned helplessness. Does that apply to not remembering names, faces, names, and the context of first meeting a person? Yeah, I mean, it does relate to that, and I'll tell you why. And it's one of these things that it's like a cultural, social phenomenon, is that people go and they say to each other all the time, oh, I have such a bad memory, and they actually train the people in their lives around them. Oh, I have a bad memory. Oh, I'm so forgetful. And then maybe we can't, I don't know if there are any scientific studies about this, directly about this. I know that there are scientific studies of it in relation to other topics. But people will actually support the claims you make about yourself and help make them even more true than they are. So they don't even have to be true in order for other people to reinforce them. So if you keep telling people, oh, I have a bad memory, or I can't remember names or something, then the people around you will start saying, you have a bad memory. And they'll actually treat you as a person who has a bad memory and so forth. It's the same thing with fear of heights. If you keep telling people you have a fear of heights, then what they'll start doing is saying, oh, we can't go that way because you have a fear of heights, which reinforces this fear of heights that you have, right? So anything in life where you're constantly telling people your weaknesses, you are essentially helping them reinforce your weaknesses. So what you can do instead is say, you know what? I forgot your name just now, but I'm a person who likes to work on improving my memory. And I think the reason I forgot it is just simply because, whatever, be honest. And then say, I'm going to memorize it now. Here's what I'm going to do to memorize it. You'll have a much more interesting experience in life as a result. You'll remember the person's name, and you won't be going around telling yourself and others that you have a poor memory. It's just a win-win situation all around. And, it doesn't matter if you have won every memory competition in the world. If you don't use the memory techniques, if you're not paying attention, you will not remember a person's name. You won't even perceive their name, right? And it's happened where competitors have gotten off the competition and they've gone and been interviewed on a talk show, and the host would be like, hey, what's my name? And well, I don't know. They were told it, but they forgot it. It's happened. It's normal. It's human, right? But the difference is that person doesn't go around saying that he has a bad memory, and he probably learned a big lesson from that. So yes, that's a good question, Peyton. It does relate, and you do not have to ever tell anybody anything other than that you are a person who focuses on improving your memory. It's really, really, really important that you frame it with the positive outcome that you want. Nappy says, can you improve creating images very fast when storing information in memory palaces? Of course. That's absolutely available to you at any time. One of the ways that you do it, if you want to increase your speed of images, is memorize cards. This will not only increase your speed of image creation, but also your speed of image linking, and you'll learn a lot about spatial memory. You'll learn a lot about all the tools and tricks and techniques just by simply having a regular practice. Once in a while practice, not going to learn nearly as much. You're not going to gain the chops either that you'll get from regular memory practice. And then there's like another kind of thing in there, which is actual use of memorized decks in things like card routines, which are a lot of fun. And then, you might have a stack that you've memorized and you've been using for years, and then you're doing what I do, which is like doing a brand new stack and trying some new routines and stuff from a different teacher, and it's just a lot of fun. Great challenge. Oscar says, about speed reading, I can share to all of you that it is very hard trying to imagine what you are reading in high speed. For me, speed reading doesn't work only if I had memorized it beforehand. Oh, interesting feedback. Thank you for sharing that. I think that, I'm a big supporter of what Jonathan teaches. It's a lot more than just speed reading. And I don't speed read myself, although I do something that I call magnetic memory method, bibliomancy, and it's just a different approach that I think, it's just geared towards a different kind of outcome. So depends. And if you want to get into speed reading, without a doubt, there are some really interesting demonstrations of it. So you can look into it deeper. And again, I think if you want the trial of Jonathan's course, then you'll have a lot of fun and learn a lot. So that's just use the link magneticmemorymethod.com/SL. Nappy says, speed reading works fine for people who have a lot of vocabulary. Interesting. I never thought of it that way. It was really interesting, actually, now that you mentioned the vocabulary thing, because I was interviewed in German the other day, and I realized that I just have this tremendous German vocabulary, and it was a lot of fun. But because I haven't been speaking German nearly as much, it was just kind of like not remembering. It wasn't that remembering the words was a challenge and so forth, but it was just kind of like explaining really technical stuff, and I'm not sure what to make of it. We'll see what happens when the interview comes out, but it was exciting. It was a lot of fun. Well, guys, this has been an exciting time together. We had some brain exercises that I shared, and I hope that you found them useful. I hope you'll give them a try. Peyton asks, are images generally passive, or can they be created to be dynamic and interactive? Not that I want them to start breeding, but I'm not sure about the passive thing. But what I do know is that if you practice, you'll have the answer to that question, and you'll know it from experience exactly what's going on, and you'll know the answer to that question, because it's not a one sentence answer. The answer is your practice, and your practice in respect to and connection with what exactly it is you're practicing, right? So it's a very, very good question, but it's one that has to be answered in the individual's practice. Nappy says, yes, and please, Peyton, don't try to think about your life when you are reading, because it will slow you down and pictures will be, let's see here, it disappeared. Pictures will be like about your life and what you'll do next and so forth. Yeah, I can't really speak to the speed reading thing, because I think that it depends. It depends what you want your outcome to be. That's basically the reality of it is. And just like anything in the world, you want to have multiple tools in your toolbox. You want to study from multiple people and get a real sense of what's going on, which is why Jonathan and I are the combination of Superlearner and Magnetic Memory Method has been so successful for so many people. It's because they complement each other so well. And so I highly recommend that you gather both, get both under your belt, and don't stop there. It's just the beginning of an adventure, or maybe it's a midpoint in the adventure, and it's just a lot of fun to constantly be learning. I'm learning new memory techniques all the time. I'm coming up with new memory techniques, not all the time, but frequently, because practice gives you more insight. It gives you more exposure to more ways of using the techniques and really thinking, oh my, why didn't I see that? Or when you read from somebody else, like in my readings of Bruno or whoever I may be reading, even rereading Aristotle, on memory, even though I know it really well and did a course on Aristotle's memory it's just surprising how that when you come back to the fundamentals, when you come back to the basics with the benefit of experience under your belt, you just realize, wow, how could I have not seen that before? And the answer why you didn't see it before is very simple. You didn't see it before because you didn't get to that present version of yourself who had the experiences that are required to experience new perspectives. So it really pays. It pays to go back and reread things, which is, I haven't decided what my August book will be that I'm going to reread, but since I started rereading books, man, it's just been incredible. It's been incredible how not only do they seem both the same and very different, but how they reveal so many things that never could have been revealed if I'd only read them just the once. It's really great. So I highly recommend rereading books. And I'm not sure yet what I will reread in August, but rereading The Luck Factor was amazing. Rereading Waking Up by Sam Harris was amazing. And I fully expect that whatever I reread this month will be amazing. And even more important than amazing, it'll be downright magnetic. So I want to thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate this time that we had together. Hope that you'll give some brain exercises a try. And I hope you'll be in touch. I hope you come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com. New podcast coming up real soon. Today's Tuesday. I usually put them out on Thursday, which is a different day of the world perhaps for you, but hope you'll come and enjoy the podcast because I sure enjoy making them for you. Joe Pell says, thanks, Anthony. Great video. Thank you for being here, Joe Pell. Thanks for great interaction. Peyton says, night. Thank you. Thank you, Peyton, for being here. Great contributions. Really appreciate them. And I appreciate you all. And hope you have a really stellar beginning to your next day, and that you create some memory palaces, you do some brain exercise, and that, as always, you keep yourself magnetic. Take care. Bye-bye.